Hari Om. Continue reading Yoga Chudamani Upanishad, and we continue our course to understand Khechari Mudra, connection to the Bindu, chakras around the face. So next mantra 57 and 58, retention of Bindu. Sanskrit is Khecharya Mudritam Yena Vivaram Lambi Kordvatach Natstasya Ksheyache Bindu Kuminya Lingitasya Cha Yavad Bindu Shtito Tehetavan Mrityabhayam Kutach Yavadbada Nabomudra Tavabdi Durna Gachati. Of course, my Sanskrit is transliteration, which probably not as correct as it sounds in original. Translation: one who closed the cavity of the palate from above with Khechari will not lose the Bindu even in the embrace of a woman. As long as Bindu is retained in the body, from where arises the fear of death, Bindu is not wasted as long as it is bound by Nabho Mudra. Nabho Mudra here, I think it's a different name for Khechari. See, there's two passages, and first one have a little bit of lyric connotation. So we will look in the commentary, what does it say, what the traditional explanation by Swami Satya Dharma. The actual source of Bindu is in the higher centers of the brain, in the region of Bindu chakra. However, due to the influence of desire and passion, the Bindu falls down to the lower regions. There is a burnt up by the fire Manipura, or falls lower to the reproductive centers, where it's transformed into sperm and ova. At the higher level, Bindu exists as a drop of Amrita or nectar of immortality. At the intermediate level, it exists as Prana, which maintains the digestive and metabolic processes. At the lower levels, it exists as a drop of sexual fluid or seed, which is secreted from the male and female reproductive organs at the time of orgasm. Normally, the sexual act takes place when the Bindu falls from the higher centers due to the influence of desire and passion. So we're going to go deeply into this. So just a retouch. So in previous passages, mantras, we described and talk about specifically how the Bindu, when it's located, Bindu, the crescent moon, you have this drop of Amrit. Life forces, I kind of interpret the Amrit, it's what the gods are sipping in Olympus, what the gods in Hinduism are drinking, nothing else is this kind of nectar of life. It's the sweeter and tastier than anything you've tried in your life. It's one drop can give you longevity for thousands and millions of years. So all these things, and we as the people, humans, according to all this understanding of chakra system, we are getting our life forms from that. So Bindu is this connection, and then you get this drop, and you're sipping it through the throat, or not. If you don't collect it here by practicing Ujjayi Khechari, it's going to go through your heart. It goes through into the Manipura, your fire. Here around the stomach, that's where we digest energy. That's where we, from a very gross food, we transform into the energy for us, so we can think, we can create, we can live, we can, make music. So this is transformation, your point of transformation. So you kind of burn it like a fire, burns wood into the ashes and into the flame, oxygen, whatever, carbon dioxide, similar, you transform the food source here. And then if it says it's sipping even through, further down, depends on your pool, it's feeding your lower chakras. And it doesn't have to be sexual, so it's this energy in direct transform into sperm and ova. I guess it's like eggs and ovaries, all the whatever produced there. But in reality, it could be anything on these levels. So even like fears and feeding your, dissipating your life energy into addictions, probably. Yeah. So that's how probably briefly described, and very nicely here. So during the mission at the Bindu, it's ejected through the sexual organs by the active force of Apana, the downward moving prana. In this way, the Bindu is expanded for the pursuit of pleasure or the regeneration of life. However, there is a third form of sexual interaction practiced for the purpose of spiritual awakening, in which the partners unite without losing the Bindu. In order to utilize the sexual act for spiritual upliftment, both partners must control their emotions and passions and perfect certain practices of Kundalini Yoga, which verse the downward flow of Apana and retain the Bindu. So it tells you that you don't, not every time, you don't have to lose this energy through that. You can, I would say maybe don't keep your tap of energy open, you can close it. And if you practice, I guess it's one of the part of the kamasutra as well. So if you, they call it Tantra practices, but it's not Tantra practice, it's one of part of it, so it's included all of them, as I told you before already many times. If you stay conscious through that even act of this immersed passion, and it's very hard to do, especially if you're just in the beginning, or you have this, if you're young and you have a lot of restrictions, or you have a lot of energy. So the practicing yoga, you kind of come to this with control attitude, and not control, but you're aware, that's a more correct term. You have not just the experience itself become much more vivid and you're conscious about it. It's also, it can help you with your spiritual awakening, so you can harvest even more energy. And it's with everything. It doesn't have to be with, like here says, sexual intercourse. Could be with anything else, whatever you do, whatever, how low to the earth practices you can do, even doing something very not pleasant in this life, but we have to do because that's the physical reality of our world. You can still, by bringing this conscience into that moment, even get enlightenment from it. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, cleaning the toilets or doing something not very pleasant, it seems like, but if you, depends on your attitude, if you bring your compassion and devotion, that's very important, it will be part of your spiritual awakening. According to this mantra, Khechari Mudra is one of such practices. So by folding the tongue back and closing the cavity of the palate, the Bindu does not fall, even in the embrace of a woman. In the embrace of the woman, it's mean, well, usually this type of text, especially back in the day, were probably written more for men. So, but these days it doesn't matter. It could be a woman embrace the woman, the man embrace the man embrace the woman embrace the man, and so on, and other things. Whoever is embracing whom, whatever you have this passion impulse, that's what it means. You can still hold your Bindu, so you can still not to lose this drip. The science of Tantra, from which Kundalini Yoga was derived, that's what I already mentioned, teaches that sexual suppression or abstention does not result in retention of the Bindu. So this is another misconception. So you think if we are practicing brahmacharya, we are preserving it. So it's not necessary. It might be even could be worse. So sometimes it's even advisable to go and experience that, yeah, for spiritual reasons. So it's very, very, very depends on the case scenario, on the situation, on the personality, what's happening there. The science of Tantra tells you it doesn't always like that. So we know that traditionally the monks are supposed to restrain themselves from any interactions with opposite sex and so on. So, but it's not actually bringing you to enlightenment. And how many young monks who are happy you saw who does that, and it's very, you have to work with your guru and see if it's beneficial for you. It's also for each person, depends on the part of the life, what's happening. It will depend, so sometimes that's a good practice to restrain, sometimes not opposite, you need to go and explore. So for your pushing through particular chakras or bringing some energy, so it's very, very not true. Our misconceptions about these things. If you're practicing any original tantric yogi practices, you should understand that you will be much, much broader minded to all these things. Similar with the asanas or pranayamas and meditations. If you come to any yoga, whatever, studio, yoga guru, whatever, and he tell you it has to be like that, nothing else, probably you should leave, because there's no such a thing in this. So there's a specific techniques which you can apply. And if you ask for specific technique or specific school, they will say, yeah, it's traditionally, we practice it like that. And any professional guru teacher will explain you why it is like that. In his particular lineage, or his school, or his guru told him this. Or he advised you to practice it in a specific way. And if they don't have explanation, or they just say this is just how it's been through years, and this will be, first of all, be not true, because it's constantly evolving. So every guru teacher who got his knowledge from the teachers and passed it through, they will somehow change it. And that's the lineage has to keep it very, very specific. So we avoided this constant changes, because if you change it from in 200 years from whatever originally, we thought we should practice, to whatever people say now, yes, could be adapted, but with this authenticity, how will you have the effect which it's supposed to be for? So you have to sustain this like a core of how it come from ancient text, and that's why techniques has to be passed directly from guru to student, and you have to repeat it many times, so you do not add your things, because if I learn something, heard something somewhere through internet, and then I start practicing, and of course I'm gonna put some of my changes sometimes. It's like this famous thing about the cat in a temple somewhere in Tibet, I think, or maybe India. So there was a temple, and the people were practicing, doing practice in the morning. And one of the priests was, every time before his ceremony, whatever happened in the temple, he was tying the cat to just before the entry to the temple. His son was growing up and watching him doing this every time, and he misunderstood this. He thought that this is how the tradition of practice is, so it's for luck or whatever, for the better practice. You have to tie a cat just outside for time of practice. And when he grown up, he started doing exactly the same, but this monk, whatever, a priest, didn't realize that his father was tying a cat, because every time there was a ceremony, the cat was very curious, and she was going inside, and she was disturbing the practice. So he realized, I should tie my cat for this hour or whatever we have a practice outside. We do our practice, nobody disturbs it, and then he tied back, so it's free. His son didn't realize this because he didn't ask. So in his world, it's the part of the ceremony to tie a cat. So when he grown up, he went to the market, got the cat, and started tying it to the temple. It's like example or famous short story that's showing us that this can happen through practice as well. So you don't have to practice celibacy or brahmacharya when you want to achieve something in yoga. Sometimes opposite, you should not, or some people they should. So it's very, very individual. Depends what you're trying to achieve, what type of practice you're doing right now, what you're trying to develop. Maybe you're trying to stir the energy around the lower chakras, and you're trying to conceive a child, and it's never going to happen if you do not practice it, so if you don't have any interactions. In order to retain the Bindu, it is necessary to establish control at the point of origin and prevent it from falling down to the lower centers where it will normally be dissipated. The yogi who is indifferent to desire and passion can thus use Khechari Mudra to retain the Bindu, even during sexual interaction. So the Khechari, it's like this good point, and I told you, like when I sit cross-legged and with upright back, I already bring myself to the state. So it's like one of my trick. Some people has to hold the mala in their hand, some people. But all of us experience amazing connection the moment we get a Khechari. In this way, the yogi avoids the loss of Bindu even while maintaining sexual relationships. So it doesn't have to be through the act itself, but it could be through, even when you go to toilet, or even when you giving the birth, for the woman, it's important. We very using Apana. So Apana, remember we talk about Apanos, it's the energy that gonna belly and downwards. It's responsible for the legs and energy going downwards. But the problem with us people that we have too much energy going down, and that's why we kind of draining ourselves faster than otherwise. So that's why we get sicker or life gets shorter. And spiritually, you don't have enough energy to rise it up. So the yogis are, that's why we're sitting cross-legged. We're trying to stop it, reverse it, and bring it up on high levels. But also, if you constantly bring in the high levels, you don't have any energy there. There's a very important centers, which ovaries for the women, semen for the man. It's basically your unlimited source of the energy connection production. You have to, and Kundalini is sleeping there, and Muladhara, remember. So without activating all of it, you cannot as well awaken your Kundalini. So you cannot, if you stay all the time in your mind, sometimes you need to bring your energy here on the heart space and push through and feel the compassion or something. Or intuition, your Chintamani, you need to connect to Chintamani to understand what actually you need to do, because mind is tricky. So we have to activate all of that to bring it in the upper levels. So we just need to basically open all the channels. And it's very good during the sexual relationship to start practicing. Some people call it Tantra yoga, but it's just attributed to the Tantra, because the Tantra, the one that says you don't have to, restrain yourself, rather than, I don't know, modern, maybe some of the branches of the yoga that say you have to stop it all. They scare you. The second mantra states that there will be no fear of death as long as the Bindu is retained in the body. We will read through, but remember, I already say when we talk about what is the Bindu, it's this kind of like a cable. Remember, I give you an analogy. I don't know why, but Matrix, the Matrix movie, first one. I remember seeing it first time. It was very bad quality VHS tape, copied. It wasn't original, and also because I'm Russian speaking, so it was also on top of it there was this translation, which is like half a words incorrect translated. So, but the impression of that movie was enormous. So, especially with this, when he knew unplugging from the system, and he goes through this kind of like he'd been drained like through the toilet. They disconnect him at the back. So, and then he continues. That's how he was realizing he's in this kind of dream state, in a virtual reality, basically, as we understand now. 30 years later, or if he was in this actual reality, physical world. So he had this like a hole drilled into his head through which he was connected to, I don't know, whatever system computers connecting to. It was a very interesting and naive back in the day that people thinking you have to actually have this kind of like enormous plug in your head to connect. These days you don't need to do this. Maybe some kind of just a wellness or Wi-Fi will do it in the near future and connect to our mind. But back in the day, yeah, it was like that. Not analogy, but that's how I see this connection of the tube through the Bindu in my mind. It could be absolutely wrong, so correct me if it's not what it is. But the Bindu, it's this point at the back, yeah, which you connect to your birth and to the death. So we come through there, and Sahasrara as well, as people attributed into the life, and then we're constantly kind of connected to this. Whatever the knowledge, when we tap to this immersed knowledge, higher self, we connect through this. Well, I see like through the energy point to higher computers, whatever universe, the God, the Lord. Abnivesha, or fear of death, is one of the 5 kleshas, or basic causes of suffering, described by Sage Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra. Yeah, 5 kleshas, it's like klesha, it's like a 5 main kind of things that the one we overcoming. And the fear of death, it's a very important one. And you cannot survive on this planet if you don't have fear of death, like a healthy fear of death. But at the same time, it can kill you. The fear of death can kill you. You can become enormously depressed and basically die from fear of death, yeah? Both sides of one coin. It is one of the most fundamental motivating force governing the human personality and behavior. Yeah, so we are constantly fighting this striving to survive. If you think about your walking, every step it's you resisting the fall. Every step it's you resisting the gravity. Every time you eat, you don't want to starve. We're constantly fighting the death. Fear of death stems from the falling of Bindu, which result in identification of the self with the physical body. The loss of Bindu, especially during the sexual act, strongly reinforces this identification. When the yogi can control the Bindu, preventing its fall and release, even during sexual interaction, identification with the body ceases, and the consciousness is freed from the fear of death. Kind of falling of the Bindu, basically when you kind of disconnect, you totally immerse into whatever emotion you had that moment. And it doesn't have to be through the sexual. Sexual is quite interaction is quite profound and universal. But for example, it could be the rage of anger, enormous fear, when you're stumped and you lost your connection to the Bindu. When you have connection to the Bindu, there's no more fear of death. You're realizing who you are apart from this physical body, this physical moment existence. Apart from, you're not your fears, you're not the pain. And if you have this right now, that moment, you are immortal you are invincible, so nobody can harm you ever, even yourself. And this is something that nobody wants you to experience, because if you don't have any witnesses, nobody can get to you, yeah? And nobody wants this. Everything trying to survive. So everybody trying to if you look in the world, trying to survive, and it's always on the expense of somebody else. So that's why if you experience all these things, you're vulnerable, and somebody can use you for that, yeah? It's a little bit different topic, but just remember about this, not just for the understanding, why you want to feel like that, why you want to lose the fear of death. Because some people are like, oh, I'm happy what I am, I like my emotions, I don't mind that I'm weak. I'm just realizing, I have these weaknesses. But they don't understand underlying depression and unhappiness they experience through the life. Retention of the Bindu is prescribed for 3 reasons. Firstly, the Bindu is the source of creation and of individual manifestation, so its retention is necessary for the maintenance of life. That's what I just said. Tantra states that retention of the Bindu leads to immortal life, and loss of the Bindu leads to degeneration and death. It's like you gradually, if you cut down the roots of the tree, it doesn't die straight away, but it's gradually start drying out. First the leaves fall down, then the branches become dry, and then somebody will occupy the tree and eat everything inside, and eventually it will just perish. Yeah? So similar. And for humans, for us, we're losing energy, and the disease that's taking over. And that's all this. We're losing the balance. That's it. Everything falling down like a domino. Secondly, when the Bindu is retained and exploded at the higher center, spiritual experiences manifest and human nature becomes divine. Thirdly, the progress of regeneration can only be carried out by retention of the Bindu. As long as the Bindu is preserved, there is no possibility of death due to disease or degeneration. It states you, so you secondly, they say the spiritual experience in human nature becomes divine. So it is absolutely changing your life. Through that life, your departure, the death as we call it, disease, not because of your disease or degeneration. Advanced yogis practices, they have, we still have the karmic and the physical world interaction. So we still have some disease or something happen in the body. But as I told you, it's very important, not your, what's happened with you. You cannot escape this world. Yeah, very important for yogis. It's the attitude towards this realization. How you approach it. At the moment of the death, it's your choice. How you live in this world. Yeah. So if you live in this world through the fear, any yogi will even choose the moment and departure, rather than be caught, unexpected to the death. That's what they're saying. So possibility of death due to disease or degeneration impossible. How possible? So the people still die, and you cannot live forever. And most of the higher level psychic yogis, they actually decided the day and time and their departure. Yeah, basically. Preservation of the Bindu gives the benefits of physical strength, power, heat, vitality, resistance, brilliance, endurance, and the ability to decide one's own destiny. That's summary, what I say. Loss of the Bindu results in weakness of the body and gradually leads to degeneration, disease, old age, and death. This is a very important consideration of the yogi who performs intense sadhanas in order to merge himself with the Atma while still living in the body. The body is an instrument for achieving perfection in sadhana. Therefore, the yogi wishes to preserve it as long as possible in order to reach his goal. If death intervenes before the goal is reached, the yogi must come back and start again. For this reason, preservation of the Bindu is emphasized in Kundalini Yoga, which is the higher form of sadhana. So that's yogis doesn't want to, like if you didn't reach particular spiritual level, which you plan to do in this reincarnation, then you have to come back and start it all over again. And that's what yogis trying to traditionally escape. So we want to progress. But another thing I want to mention about that's this loss of this cause people to degenerate, diseases, old age, and death. And it's not necessarily just that people start having actual diseases or look old. They will. We're all gonna look old, and we are starting looking old to a particular age. It's normal. But it's also sometimes you see even physically the person might look not as young anymore. And I've seen the gurus like that, but they spiritually, they're absolutely young, you know. I don't mean like young, but they're not as grumpy, intolerable, constantly upset, depressed old people. It's usually when people become older and they have these kind of like bad things coming out, become worsen. This is what it is. That's what it talks about. And who I met, who getting older and quite a, you know, age close to the death, but they're yogi practitioners, quite advanced. They're blooming. They want to be with them. They immerse this light in love and compassion, and it's absolutely nothing like incomparable with average person who lost the bindu, as they say here. So think about this and look closely to some older or elderly people. How they differ and why is that? Yeah. The mantra further states that as long as Nabho Mudra, Khechari Mudra, is practiced, there is no loss or dissipation of Bindu. The Bindu will be prevented from falling down to the lower centers, therefore it will not be wasted or lost, which is what would happen otherwise in the normal course of life. If you never knew about this, that it exists, that it can happen, what is a Khechari, what is a Bindu, what is the chakras, what is the energy, just imagine how, you know, your life is, and it's how it's caused a struggle. You might believe some religions, some not. They're trying to explain it with the kind of limited, primitive perspective. Unless you put this spiritual basement understanding, it's all come differently to you. And you do know what to do. You do know how to age. You know what to expect from the death, even preparing for the death. And sometimes even looking forward, you know. So it's totally changing your life. It's totally changing your understanding of current event, or what's happening, all this unfairness in the world become different to you. So I hope you have a better understanding and have a great experience now in different perspective on life. And you kind of have clear vision of what's happening with you, with yourself, and around you. Hari Om.